poll gapage, which was about 15 points. So Mooney will now be the favorite, heavy favorite, to take that congressional seat. Kara Miller, who's the incumbent in what was the older districts, won her primary handily and will be also probably returning to Congress without too much debate or pushback there. In Nebraska, the governor's race got very, very ugly. One of the people in it, Charles Herbster, fell under a lot of scandal accusations and things like this. Donald Trump had backed him. He went down to defeat. He was beaten by Jim Pillen, 33 points to 30 points. This was a crowded field of folks, but Herbster goes down despite the Trump endorsement with all that scandal we were talking about in Nebraska. Big doings coming up on the 17th. A lot more primaries on next Tuesday. We will continue to cover them as we push along in this very contentious, very loud, very noisy, but we must admit, very interesting midterm election. More Hertel right after this.
I'm Trey Allen, conservative candidate for the North Carolina Supreme Court. As a Marine Corps veteran, practicing attorney, professor of law, and father of 5, I want to pass on the precious freedoms that we inherited to the next generation. For that to happen, we need judges who will faithfully apply our Constitution and our laws, not rewrite them to achieve specific outcomes. If you share my commitment to liberty, please vote Trey Allen in 2022. Paid for by Trey Allen for Justice.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
Wake up to Good Morning Carolina, weekdays at 5:30 a.m.
And Good Morning Carolina. It is a very busy news morning today. I'm Donna Gregory.
And I'm Jeff Rivenbark. We're glad you're starting your Tuesday with us.
Be prepared and ready to go for the day ahead.
For the time being, we are dry and quiet, but we are dealing with some patchy fog.
And catch up with the overnight news you need to know before heading out the door.
We'll have more details and more live coverage in just a few moments.
Get up early for Good Morning Carolina, weekdays at 5:30 a.m.
When might you be buzzed? When you suddenly love everything.
You guys, I love this song. I love these nachos. I love our kickball league. Ugh! I love this guy. What's your name? You know what I'd love? A ride when it's time to head out.
If you see a buzzed warning sign, call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
I love your car. Is this real leather?
Welcome back to Hertel. We always try to end on a happier note or a lighter note. This is an interesting story from GameSpot.com. Over in Australia, Epic Games took a Fortnite cheater to court in Australia, with the end result being the cheater apologizing publicly, closing down his business of selling cheated and compromised accounts, and paying Epic for damages, which the company is going to donate to charity. According to documents obtained by GameSpot, the Federal Court of Australia determined Despocotics released his own statement on Twitter saying he was going along with the consent order. He explicitly told would-be buyers would not ask him about Fortnite cheats or player accounts anymore. Quote, I'd like to apologize to the Fortnite community. What I did was illegal and gave players an unfair advantage over other people who play by the rules. I won't do this ever again. You would hope not. As part of the settlement, Despocotics must also pay damages to Epic in the amount of or both parties' total damages. Those total of those damages, while not shared with GameSpot, will be donated to Child's Play, a charity which is dedicated to improve the lives of children and teens in children's hospitals around the world. Fortnite is the most popular online game in the world right now. It's worth millions and millions of dollars, if not more. So it's nice to see that cheaters not only don't prosper, but the proceeds for that will go to a very good cause. That'll do it for Hertel. Thank you so much for joining us. Please make sure that if you're listening or watching this on whatever platform, the iTunes or Spotify for the podcast version, the YouTube channel for the video version, make sure you subscribe. It does a couple things. Make sure you don't miss anything, whether it's Heard Tell every weekday morning, the Good Talks interview breakouts every afternoon, twice on Sunday, the review shows, the long-form podcast where we deep dive various issues that warrant it, but it also makes sure we can keep track of what you are and aren't watching. We can tell whether you are enjoying Heard Tell or not, make sure we're giving you the best possible thing we can to turn down the noise of the news cycle, and the most precious thing you give us, your time. It's never wasted. We always want to respect it. More and more you are finding us. We see the numbers. Thank you so very much. We're coming off the biggest few days we've ever had, and it's all because of you. We don't advertise other than word of mouth and what we do on our own social media. So thank you very, very much. So until we see you again next time on Heard Tell, wherever you and yours are across the street or around the world, we hope you're well. We hope you're well fed. Very much looking forward to doing this again with you on the next Heard Tell. All the music on Heard Tell is provided under a Creative Content license from monstercat.com.
Bringing you the best local talk radio shows, Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7 FM, WFBT, Carolina Beach.
Government has become too big, too overtaxing, and is constantly over-regulating every aspect of your life.
If you agree with that, tune in to Consumer Choice Radio every Saturday at 10 a.m. here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM with me, Yael Osowski.
And me, David Clement. For an hour, you'll get expert analysis on what the government is sinking its teeth into next and how you, as a consumer, can push back.
ConsumerChoiceRadio.com.
To protect his home and family from disaster, Steve used courage, wisdom, and his camera phone.
That should do it.
Way to go, Steve! By simply taking digital pictures of his family's important documents, Steve can always have them stored safely online, no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster at ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Hello, I'm Matt Bennett with WWAY News. Wilmington police have arrested a suspect in a fatal hit-and-run Monday night on Shipyard Boulevard. The driver, 31-year-old Rakeem McMillan, is charged with felony hit-and-run resulting in death and driving without a license. He is being held on a $20,000 bond. Police say the crime happened in the 1600 block of Shipyard Boulevard around 10:30 Monday night. Officers say McMillan hit 40-year-old Tiffany Forsyth. She was taken to the hospital where she later died. Some Brunswick County drivers may be detoured today due to a brush fire that has forced officials to shut down a portion of NC 211. The Driving Creek fire is in the Green Swamp Preserve and is only about 20% contained. Highway 211 is closed from the Highway 214 intersection in Bolton to the Highway 17 intersection in Supply. At this time, the North Carolina Forest Service says the fire hasn't threatened any homes, but people living nearby should expect lots of smoke. The fire started Sunday and was caused by a lightning strike. A nationwide shortage of baby formula means bare shelves in stores and problems for parents of newborns. Supply issues, coupled with a voluntary recall of 3 popular brands of formula manufactured by Abbott, have only made things worse. The Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, or WIC, which helps provide formula to low-income mothers, receives much of its formula from Abbott. Ann Wren with New Hanover County Health and Human Services says a shortage like this leaves parents with few options. The Pender County Board of Education is recognizing some remarkable teachers from across the district. The intervention team at Topsail High School is made up of teachers who have volunteered their time to mentor at-risk kids based on their academics. Students who are identified as at-risk are offered the mentoring program, and they can decline it, but many have taken advantage of it. Topsail High School principal Dr. Larry Obita says each teacher has about 5 to 6 students that they meet with as much as twice a week. For more on these stories, you can head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Matt Bennett. Have a great day.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. It's going to be another comfortable day ahead of us as our temperatures climb into the low 70s, the middle 70s away from the coast, but we are going to see our fair share of clouds, especially as we get going into the afternoon and evening hours. And we do have a small chance for a few isolated showers late tonight under mostly cloudy skies as our temperatures fall down into the upper 50s with north winds holding steady at about 10 to 20 miles per hour. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
Get all your sports action with Tanner Barth on WWAY.
Let's get things started with our full court press matchup of the week.
From the full court press to the fifth quarter and everything in between.
And they say if some is good, more is better this time.
We've got your sports world covered all around the Cape Fear.
Check out the save from the captain. Full extension.
This is the place for your sports coverage. WWAY.
I'm a construction superintendent working on a new housing project in the area. I've always loved being a part of a construction crew, watching the plans come to life. But I wanted more. I went to CFCC and trained in construction management technology. Now my skills allow me to have the life I once dreamed of. I make great money and can get a job anywhere. I got my start at CFCC, and you can too. Visit cfcc.edu/trades and get started today.
Enjoying Big Talker Network is as easy as asking for it. Program your digital home assistants such as Google Home, Alexa, and Siri to stream Big Talker Network content by simple voice command. Enjoy convenient hands-free access to the program whenever you want, however you want, by asking for Big Talker.
Well, just to let y'all know, Facebook is broken. That's right, Facebook is broken. This stream will not be seen on Facebook because Facebook is broken. Facebook sucks. Zuckerberg is only out for your money, doesn't give a damn about the service or quality. Sorry. This has been the hell of a morning. Coffee everywhere, broken coffee press. Coffee mug. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, what the hell is going on? Welcome back to the Asylum, your refuge in a world gone mad, right here on the Big Talker Network. Sorry about the Facebook folks. If you were expecting to see anything on Facebook, Facebook is just crap today. Decided not to carry any of our programming. I'd be damned surprised if they carry any posts whatsoever. All this work only to be subverted. We'll find out later tonight, because that's just crap. Haven't had a problem with anybody else, and then Facebook comes along and just decides to drop the ball on everything. So, I hate these people, because it makes it difficult for me to continue doing my job when the stuff that I'm doing my job with doesn't even work. And that's damned frustrating. Oh, yeah. Oh, man. So, the Big Talker app for Android and iOS devices is much better than Facebook's crap. Doesn't even work this morning. Guaranteed to work because IIL built it, I feed it. It works that way. Facebook is managed by a bunch of, well, if you've seen that haircut, that should scare the hell out of you. Just by itself. Oh, man. All right. I know what it is. Zuckerberg's 1631 Bible. The Wicked Bible. Yeah. John Johnson of Newser.com. It's considered one of the most serious blunders in publishing history, according to the University of Canterbury in New Zealand. But also one of the funniest. The Bible printed in England in 1631 left out the word not in the seventh commandment, and thus instructed readers, thou shalt commit adultery. The typo caused an uproar at the time, And King Charles I was not amused, resulting in the destruction of nearly all the approximately 1,000 copies in print, per The Guardian. However, about 20 specimens of the aptly nicknamed Wicked Bible are known to have survived, and one just surfaced in New Zealand for the first time. It's a mystery, it's fascinating, and it has made its way halfway around the world, Chris Jones, Associate Professor in Medieval Studies at the university, tells The Guardian. A former student brought him the copy obtained in an estate sale, and Jones is unveiling it for the first time after a few years of study and restoration work. Much debate exists about how the typo came to be, including a theory that a rival printer sabotaged the efforts of royal printer Robert Baker. Jones, however, thinks the reason is less sinister. He chalks it up to overworked copy editors operating in what was then a highly competitive industry. Copy-paste, ladies and gentlemen. Copy-paste, spell check, and also Strunken Wagnalls. Or Strunken Wagnalls. Strunk. Elements of style. Not. But then again, the book itself is kind of outdated. So, yes or no, I mean, all these wonderful Christians is upstanding, basing their entire, again, separation of church and state, basing their entire campaign on, I'm a Christian, who has this Bible because he's been committing more adultery than the entire Las Vegas, anyway. Coming out of News Channel 12 by Zachary Rogers, this one's even more disturbing. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in an election cycle, and a man charged with the wife's murder wins the primary election and will be on the November ballot. Can we stop with the stupid? Lebanon, Indiana, even better, just north of where I got here from. An Indiana man who is currently in jail reportedly is one of 3 winners in a GOP primary and will appear on this year's ballot for a township board seat. Andrew Wilhoit, 39, is awaiting trial for the murder of his wife, Elizabeth Nikki Wilhoit. I guess that's how it's pronounced. He was reportedly arrested in March. Nikki's body was pulled from a creek after her husband told deputies he dumped her there after striking her with a flower pot during a fight outside their home. During Tuesday's Republican primary for the Clinton Township Board seat, Wilhoit received 60 votes, which is 21.75%, placing him behind the only other 2 candidates. Since 3 candidates could win the nomination and only 3 candidates ran, all 3 won. WTHR News explains no Democrats ran in the primary for the Clinton Township Board. Speaking with Kokomo Tribune, my goodness, co-director of the bipartisan Indiana Election Bipartisan Indiana Election Division, Brad King, says nobody can remove Wilhoit from the ballot, but the murder suspect can withdraw from the race by June 15 if he so wishes. Here's a quote by King. There is no legal reason he can't be a candidate. Under our system, you are innocent until proven guilty. If a person is convicted of a felony, then they are no longer eligible to be a candidate and are ineligible to hold office. Court documents reportedly say Wilhoit initially lied to detectives, saying he didn't know where his wife was after she failed to show up for work. Eventually, Wilhoit told police a different story, and Nikki's body was found. Friends of Nikki tell WTHR News Nikki had just finished her last chemo treatment for breast cancer before she died. The couple had also already filed for divorce due to the husband's extramarital affair. Thou shalt commit adultery. If Wilhoit does somehow win his general election, King says it would be possible for him to take his oath of office in jail, according to the Kokomo Tribune. I find that to be a foul, where King had just said If a person is convicted of a felony, then they are no longer eligible to be a candidate and are ineligible to hold office. Then he turns around and says it's possible for him to take his oath of office in jail. What? Who the hell's running Indiana up here? Any notary public can administer an oath of office, and that can be in any setting in which the person is available to have the oath administered and sign the oath of office, King said. What? There's no scheduled date for Will Hoyt's murder trial, according to WXIN News, and the husband must stay in jail until the trial. Elected officials who cannot fulfill their duties due to incarceration are usually removed from office. But King reportedly says this is not the case for township board members. So, ladies and gentlemen, corrupt criminal capital has moved to Indiana, so you can murder your wife and still run for town council. That's the representation y'all need. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Here in North Carolina, we have 2 convicted felons running for office, both of which were convicted of bribery and other untoward activities while in office and are running for those same offices again. How is this possible? How is that possible? Brilliant. So here's a Christian guy. I mean, I guess he's a Christian. He's got an extramarital affair, and according to the Bible, thou shalt commit adultery. Or at least that's the copy he's got. And on right after her last chemo treatment, this is the type of person you want representing you? That's a little rough. That's a little rough. I think that one's a little rough. A little much for me, ladies and gentlemen. I want to vote for people who represent me for real, like, who really know who we are and what we're doing. Okay, where did this one go? I had it on me, and it just went, oh. No, I can't do that. This one is the one I was trying to get to. I'm sorry, with the coffee issue I had this morning, there's just not enough caffeine surging through my body to keep up with all the... Yes. Okay. Coming from the sun, I love these people. The author is Ed Southgate. A former dancer has cheesed off online trolls by making $123,000 plus a year selling dead mice. Katie Hardwick, 38, performed a career pirouette to become a full-time taxidermist, selling the mice for $67 to $246. She stuffs at least 5 dead mice a day and creates mini scenes by attaching them to stripper poles, circus hoops, and miniature yoga mats. Mom of 2, Katie of Eastbourne, East Sussex, England. Why can't they just... Never mind. It's a good thing we separated from them. I like living on a normal street like Main Street in Hollyridge. Eastbourne, Essex, England. Okay. XFL39Q. People love it or hate it, and I get a lot of angry vegans on my case. Oh, no. This is not pizza toppings, ladies and gentlemen. These are dead mice. Some people have told me that this mouse didn't die just to be immortalized as a stripper. It's all just a bit of fun. It would be a very different practice if I was working with a rare elephant's head. All of my mice are purchased from the pet shop as they are sold as reptile food. They are already dead and frozen. Her obsession began when her husband, James Hardwick, 40, purchased her a Taxidermy Your First Mouse kit for Christmas 5 years ago. Oh, my. That's a Christmas gift. Taxidermy Your First Mouse. Can we get this for the kids? She taught herself taxidermy basics and began selling her pieces online. More than 3,400 of her twirling stuffed mice have been shifted on Etsy alone. And it's ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, these are just wrong. You have to see these. These are just wrong. They got one that looks like Amy Winehouse. Yeah, I was right. And she just looks drunk. It's amazing. Katie added, after a bit of practicing, the house was getting filled up, so my husband suggested that I try selling them online because people love a bit of bad taxidermy. It's like liking bad coffee. I don't know where the hell you go. They became quite popular. Then when the lockdown hit and people had more time on their hands, other orders increased massively. I started sharing them on TikTok, which went viral with 5.9 million hits and 65.5 thousand followers. So many think that I spend my day covered in blood whilst I'm wearing a surgical mask and rubber gloves, but it's not as messy of a process as some people might think. To make the mice, I defrost it first, then take the skin off. How's that to start your day? You having your coffee and skinning mice at 8 in the morning? Okay. I give them a borax treatment, which gets rid of bacteria, then make a little head out of clay, and then I shape the legs and arm out of wire and then I shape the legs and arms out of wire before. That's it for the sentence. I'm sorry. I don't know where she went with that. Her next sentence starts with, I do it all on my dining room table and use a magnifying light. My husband is disgusted that I take over the table. I would be too. I'm going to go eat my sandwich in the toilet because you got dead mice guts all over my table. While some people do not approve of Katie's bonkers creations, she says that her children are fascinated with her work. They don't have a choice. They can't get away from it. And these things cannot smell good, right? They're dead, they're frozen, they're defrosted, and they're exsanguinated? Do you bother squishing the blood? She said my daughter Vera, 5, is obsessed and loved to watch me work. When she was at nursery, one of her teachers asked me what I do for a living because they couldn't make out what Vera was explaining about my work. Vera and my son Cooper, Cooper is one, I guess, are going to grow up thinking this is a completely normal thing, which makes me laugh. Boy, you are starting a sociological experiment all on your own, aren't you there? Yeah. America love the mice a lot over Christmas. America love the mice. Y'all have trouble with the English language. Americans love the mice a lot. And over Christmas, I'm always busy with orders. See, I fixed it for you. I'd love to do a huge piece soon that incorporates lots of taxidermied creatures. I think what she's doing is like living out a former inner fantasy, I guess, right? Alternate life. Because what she has these mice doing on the stripper pole is just unnatural. But then again, carving open a dead mouse and stuffing it with clay and wire so you can, maybe, I don't know. But, it's good to have a hobby. And if anybody ever saw the show 6 Feet Under, I think she's well on her way. I mean, if she's making over $100,000 with dead mice, yeah, the rest of us got to up our game. Oh, man. No. And no, she's not using gloves. And she's doing, yes, right there on, she's sitting in the chair that if you were to invite me to dinner at that house, I would be like, nah, I'm good. Don't even put it in a to-go bag. And, of course, that would be the wrong house to go for Thanksgiving. After the meal, you say, oh, I'm stuffed. Yeah, you'd find yourself on Etsy real quick, wouldn't you? Eee. So yeah, if you're wondering what to get your loved one for Christmas this year, let's taxidermy your first mouse. And I'm guessing the taxidermy kit does not include the first mouse. So you're just, man. Whoo. During the pandemic, a lot of people seem to have become best friends with their four-legged pets. What's the word I'm looking for? The cohabitants of your place. Well, in Palm Beach. Uh-oh, does that mean Florida? Yes, it means we're back in Florida, coming out of UPI. Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office said in a Facebook page, by the way, Facebook isn't working, so Zuckerberg yourself right on out of here, that a detective was sitting in his car when he spotted a loose dog wandering in traffic. I guess that part is not necessarily unique. I hear you, computer. Stop it. Oh, you had to put everything where I can't see it. All right. One more time. Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office said that in a Facebook post that a detective was sitting in his car when he spotted a loose dog wandering in traffic. There we are. The detective opened his door to call to the dog, and the canine jumped right into the passenger seat of his patrol vehicle. The detective drove his new canine friend to the animal care and control where his microchip identified the owners, and the dog was reunited with his family. How this became news is actually encouraging. Right? Because if you think about it, there is no place in this world right now for silly. Right? So the story of a dog, and I don't think he was lost. I think he was just like checking out the world around him, and then somebody kidnapped him who happened to have a badge, a gun, and a car with lights on it. So the dog was kidnapped by the, what was it, Palm Springs? Come on, update. Thank you. Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. One of the sheriffs kidnapped somebody's dog and drove it to the animal care control. That wasn't very nice. If you're going to kidnap anybody, kidnap that guy who killed his wife and is still running for office. Maybe he belongs. Oh, wait, he's already in jail but still running for office. What a wonderful system we have here in America, ladies and gentlemen. You can vote for your favorite criminal, and they can still take, well, apparently King doesn't even know the difference, because he's saying that he's able to take the oath while in jail, while saying that, you know, if a person is convicted of a felony, they are no longer eligible. But it's quite possible to have the oath administered in jail. Indiana needs an overhaul. And I don't think it's just me. All right, ladies and gentlemen, when we come back, we will have Dan Romand with us from Full Circle Fitness. And even though I run into him consistently in Bolivia, way out in the middle of God's country, he actually works and does stuff in a place called Monkey Junction. What's interesting is I have driven down, College Road a number of times. Right? I've driven everything from Longleaf Pine down to Snowcuts Bridge, and the only monkeys I see are the ones standing on the side of the road with a sign saying, "Please pay me for being a..." Never mind. We'll be right back on the Asylum. Your refuge in a world gone mad. Don't go nowhere.
Hello, I'm Matt Bennett with WWAY News. Wilmington police have arrested a suspect in a fatal hit-and-run Monday night on Shipyard Boulevard. The driver, 31-year-old Rakeem McMillan, is charged with felony hit-and-run resulting in death and driving without a license. He's being held on a $20,000 bond. Police say the crime happened in the 1600 block of Shipyard Boulevard around 10:30 Monday night. Officers say McMillan hit 40-year-old Tiffany Forsyth. She was taken to the hospital where she later died. Some Brunswick County drivers may be detoured today due to a brush fire that has forced officials to shut down a portion of NC 211. The Driving Creek fire is in the Green Swamp Preserve and is only about 20% contained. Highway 211 is closed from the Highway 214 intersection in Bolton to the Highway 17 intersection in Supply. At this time, the North Carolina Forest Service says the fire hasn't threatened any homes, but people living nearby should expect lots of smoke. The fire started Sunday and was caused by a lightning strike. A nationwide shortage of baby formula means bare shelves in stores and problems for parents of newborns. Supply issues, coupled with a voluntary recall of 3 popular brands of formula manufactured by Abbott, have only made things worse. The Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, or WIC, which helps provide formula to low-income mothers, receives much of its formula from Abbott. Ann Wren with New Hanover County Health and Human Services says a shortage like this leaves parents with few options. The Pender County Board of Education is recognizing some remarkable teachers from across the district. The intervention team at Topsail High School is made up of teachers who have volunteered their time to mentor at-risk kids based on their academics. Students who are identified as at-risk are offered the mentoring program, and they can decline it, but many have taken advantage of it. Topsail High School Principal Dr. Larry Obita says each teacher has about 5 to 6 students that they meet with as much as twice a week. For more on these stories, you can head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Matt Bennett. Have a great day.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. It's going to be another comfortable day ahead of us as our temperatures climb into the low 70s, the middle 70s away from the coast, but we are going to see our fair share of clouds, especially as we get going into the afternoon and evening hours. And we do have a small chance for a few isolated showers late tonight under mostly cloudy skies as our temperatures fall down into the upper 50s with north winds holding steady at about 10 to 20 miles per hour. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by 2 Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to 2menandatruck.com. 2menandatruck.com.
We need judges who serve we the people, not self-interested career politicians. This is Jenny Statting, wife of Judge Michael Statting, your conservative candidate for North Carolina Court of Appeals. Michael is a former prosecutor, sitting Republican judge, and a reservist in the United States Air Force. Michael is a lifelong public servant. That is why I'm asking you to remember to vote for Judge Michael Statting, your conservative candidate for North Carolina Court of Appeals. Paid for by the committee to elect Michael Statting. Michael Statting is a reservist for the United States Air Force. Use of job title does not imply endorsement by the Department of Air Force or the Department of Defense.
Enjoying Big Talker Network is as easy as asking for it. Program your digital home assistants such as Google Home, Alexa, and Siri to stream Big Talker Network content by simple voice command. Enjoy convenient hands-free access to the program whenever you want, however you want by asking for Big Talker.
Papa, why can't we telegraph while riding a horse?
Son, there ain't no one to blame but Jeffro. He was riding old Betsy the Stallion, tip-tapping away at his telegraph when blam! Ran right into the side of the saloon.
Well, if Jeffro can't do it, neither should you. Don't text and drive.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Me too.
Hey, welcome back to the Asylum, your refuge in a world gone mad. In fact, someone off the side here had to remind me of the taxidermy story. There's an actual gamer and a DJ guy whose name is Deadmau5. I don't know if you knew that, but here we are. And Dan Romand, our friend here, who has declined to send his or gift his wife the My First Taxidermy Mouse kit. And I guess that's... Sorry?
If I were to do that, I don't think I would survive the evening.
Just don't do it on the kitchen table. I think that was one man's request. Just, not on the kitchen table.
A few years back, we had a wonderful kitty, and she used to gift her mice, leave them on the bed, headless, of course. She would just bring us the bodies and leave them on the bed, and my wife's reaction to that pretty much indicates the reaction I would get if I gave her a mouse as a gift.
The woman's making $123,000 a year.
Yeah.
Selling dead mouse that have been wired around to look unnaturally stripper-esque, which is remarkably flexible, which I guess is going to segue into what you guys have going on.
Yeah. Well done, sir. Well done.
I have practice.
Clearly, yeah, you're very good at it. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about something that I actually talked about on my podcast the other day with my wife, which is it was a great question that was posed to us, and it's one I think a lot of the listeners will relate to, especially your older ones like moi and vous. See, I speak French too. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, fun fact. So one of the things
Escargot, dude.
Escargot, another thing my wife loves and I hate. I just can't eat.
It's just smaller than it's smaller than a mouse. So just
that's true.
Just
Good
putting
point
that
there.
out there. There's more meat on a mouse.
And they are pure protein, so you know there's that plus too.
And then you get to stuff it and sell it for $123,000 a year. The benefits are, I'm thinking a career change myself here. So you continue your thing, and I'm going to start taking notes on my first taxidermy.
Yeah, but you can't use mice. That's already taken. You'll have to come up with something else. You know, like the skinks that run around here. There you go. We could stuff them and sell them.
They're too cute. Plus,
yeah, they are.
They're cute. Mice are kind of cute, but
they are.
Again, we digress.
Anyway,
I could do it to the mosquitoes.
Yeah, well, there's plenty of those too.
And
or we could do it to the seagulls. That would be.
Oh yeah, the flying rats. Perfect.
Yes.
All right. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm working on flying rats. You're working on, like, it has come to my attention, I am at the point in my life where if I drop something, I really have to ask myself if I need it.
Yes. And it's funny that you say that because that kind of goes into that conversation. So one of the things that was asked of us was, what's the differences between working out in, say, your 20s and 30s, or even your teens for that matter, and, in your 50s, 60s, and 70s. And, being guys, you're a guy, I'm a guy, at least I think we are. You don't know these days.
Don't ask, don't tell.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of can remember those days, although as the brain goes, the memory goes with it. But you think back to what you were able to do in your teens, 20s, 30s, and you still think you can do that. And the reality is many times you can, but there's a price to be paid more often than not. So what we talk about with people with all of that is, as you get older, you still want to do your workouts, but you do need to make adjustments. The biggest adjustment and the toughest one, especially for guys, but women deal with this too, is understanding that you need to let your body recover. So I'll use myself as an example. Back in the day, I used to lift weights 5-6 times a week, a couple hours at a time. Loved it. It was my refuge, my mental recovery place. If I tried to do that now, I wouldn't be able to walk. I'd be like you, right? If I dropped something, I'd be asking the wife to pick it up or the dog.
Or my toes are becoming incredibly prehensile.
Yeah. So, I've had to make adjustments, and what I've done in my particular case, and I talked about this on our podcast, is cut back. So I'm still lifting weights. I'm actually still lifting fairly close to what I used to. And I actually believe I could get back to what I used to if I really wanted to dedicate myself. But I have to only do it a couple times a week. Some weeks I'll bump in a third, but most of the time I'm only lifting heavy twice a week. I just cannot do it as often. My body can't recover. And that's the big difference. It's not so much the working out that's the problem, although you need to adjust that as well. It's more allowing your body to recover afterwards. And a lot of people don't realize that. Again, it goes back to that mental mindset that, well, if I could do it at 27, I should be able to do it at 57 or 67. Hell, I got 87-year-olds that think they can do that.
Ain't nothing changed but the date, man.
Age is just a number, right?
Right, yeah, man. There was a lady here, centenarian. Are you familiar with centenarian? Not to be confused with centurion.
No, I am not.
A centenarian is a person who has reached 100 years of age, like an octogenarian, but centenarian.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Got it.
Well, this centenarian was a former World War II nurse. And at 100 years, she decided that she wanted to celebrate by doing something on her bucket list she had never done. Can you guess? what she did.
I'm gonna guess parachute jump because that's a common one.
Boom. Tandem jump at 100 years old, never been out
There
of
you
a
go.
plane in her life.
Yep.
I'm guessing there's going to be a need for centenarians to have some flexibility before pop and hop out of a plane.
Put me down for one thing I will never do. Is jump out of a plane, perfectly good plane.
You and Vince Trier, one of the captain or one of the pilots of the Bandit flying team, have that's a common for you guys.
It's funny. I know quite a few people that have that on their bucket list, and it does seem to be one of the more popular ones as you get older.
And it was a girl. You're scared, and
Yeah.
this girl jumped out of a plane. 100-year-old girl, and Dan's afraid to jump out of a plane.
No, I never used to be afraid. I was never afraid of heights until about 10 years ago. I was doing. You ever hear those rope courses through the trees? The
Yeah.
obstacle courses? Yeah. So my wife and I were doing one, and there were 5 levels to it. And we were at the very end of the 3rd level. And the last obstacle was a bunch of vertical logs that you had to navigate through. And it was ballpark 60 feet up in the air. Well, good old me fell off the log and was sitting there hanging 20 feet down from that. So 40 feet in the air by a harness. And at the time I probably weighed 250 and I was pretty fit. And this wonderful young lady, all of probably 16 years old, and if she weighed 100 pounds soaking wet, it would have been a miracle, comes over. She was one of the guides, and she's like, "Can I help you, sir?" And I'm literally hanging there. And I'm like, yeah.
Being pinched in the groin by a harness.
Yeah. I'm like, help. So she scampers down to me. And she's like, just pull yourself up. And I'm like, oh, that's not happening. So I had I'll call it pleasure. It was more like humiliation of being roped down or cabled down.
Were you feeling like a
100
steer
pounds.
calf?
Yeah, I was. So by this 100-pound girl, she was wonderful, by the way. She was not laughing, but literally everyone around us was in tears laughing at me. And I don't care about that. I was laughing as hard as anybody. But the reality is that fall actually created a fear of heights for me, believe it or not. So to this day, I just don't like it. And I did great on that course up until that moment. That's I know the exact moment I became afraid of heights. So jumping out of a plane, which actually was on my bucket list, not going to happen.
So you've already fallen as far as you want to and have satisfied that need of abject
Falling
terror.
20 feet and having the harness snap. You talked about the groin area. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I remember those. I forget. Don't they call it a girdle? Isn't that what they call that harness?
I'm not sure on that. It sounds like it would work. That guy, and it was funny because that, the wire that you attach to it and then to the line they have, I don't think it's a 1/4 inch around, but it held me, and to give my wife some credit, she got almost through the 5th course, which is, they called it the Black Diamond course. And I was watching her. She was easily 120 feet up in the air, navigating obstacles, at her height of all of, not at the time, about 5 feet. But she finally wore out and she had to get cabled down, but nobody laughed at her because at that point, if you got that far, people were amazed. So, yeah.
Now I'm thinking, I'm thinking that at that point, she's probably like graduating into the P.T. Barnum and Bailey circus for some trapeze work, I mean, good Lord.
Yeah, well, she's an ex-gymnast, so that has something to do with it. But
now, do you think that, were you of the people that were involved, were you some of the youngest or the middle or on the higher end?
We were on the higher end. So the majority of the people, so they have you in like little groups, and there were, 10, 12 in our group. We were by far the oldest in our group, but in the whole scenario, I would say we were, there were a couple people that were older, but in general, we were on the high end. And, that speaks to, at the time we were, 51, I think, maybe 52, to be doing that. It wasn't because we're special or, we're better than anyone else, because we're not. We're normal people. It's just that we, worked out regularly. We took care of our bodies, relatively speaking, compared to the general public, and it allow us to try something like that. You talk about jumping out of a plane. If you're severely overweight, you ain't jumping out of a plane because they're not going to let you.
No, you're going to fall out of a plane.
Yeah, they can't. There's
no jumping.
Yeah, you're gonna go splat because the parachutes are only rated for so much, and that's not a knock on anybody. That's just the reality of it, right?
Physics.
But also, you got to land. Even in a tandem jump, you've got to land, and that's the thing that amazes me about Centurions?
Centenarian.
Centurions is the Roman things, right?
Yep.
To think about when they land. Now, obviously, if they're tandem, the instructor's with them, but to be able to take that shock on their bones, that's a big shock when you're landing. It's not. I've seen it up close. It's not like a soft landing usually. Some of them are, but.
Well, most of the airborne assault guys that I worked with over the past year or so, every one of them is like, it wasn't a morning until your ankles had snapped.
Yeah.
Because they jump out of the plane at like 5 in the morning. They hit the ground, 5:45 before they even get coffee, and they're now hobbled.
Yeah. That's very common for them to have those injuries show up later in life, too. Once you damage an ankle, I've never in all of my years in fitness seen someone have an ankle injury, a serious one, whether it's a break, strain, whatever, a serious one, fully recover from it.
Oh yeah, I still haven't. And that was 38 years ago.
I mean, that they haven't kind of resolved that one. You think about knees going, they can replace your knee. My wife just had it done and come back stronger. You think about pitchers with their arms, the Tommy John surgery, they actually come back better. Ankles, they're still where we were 100 years ago. It's the one joint that if you injure it severely, in my opinion, it just does not ever come back. And you see that with pro athletes too. Like they'll blow their knee out and be back on the field usually about a year later. Serious ankle injury, they're never the same. And
at that point, they become a coach.
They do. And it speaks to, as you get older, in your case, you had an ankle injury. You've got to be aware of that when you're working out. Doesn't mean you can't. It just means you got to make some modifications. We all have those. I always tell people that are, interested in working with us, whether it's at the studio or online, I always tell them, or ask them, what is it you're looking to do? And probably the biggest thing is not weight loss, believe it or not, in the older group.
Wow.
It's they don't want to be, they don't have the aches and pains every day. They don't want to lose their mobility and balance. That's probably those right there are 90% of the people, right? There's a few with weight loss. I'm not going to say there's not, but really it's mobility and balance. And, when you look at what you need to do, you don't need to be lifting 6 days a week.
I was going to ask, it doesn't require heavy lifting, but it requires
consistency, but you do want to use some. When I say heavy, it's relative to the person.
Right.
So
like powerlifting.
You and I are two entirely different sizes. So what's heavy to you is probably a half, if that, what is heavy to me. And that's okay, right? It's the difference in our physiques, the difference in our training. So when I say heavy, the way I always equate it to people is heavy is defined as you're challenged so that your last 1 or 2 reps of whatever set you're doing are challenging, hard. You need to push it, but you still have good form, because form is what injures people, not weight. You look at having been in gyms literally for 50 years at this point. Well, probably 45. I'll go be honest with it. I've seen far more injuries with lighter weights than I have super heavy weights. And it really comes down to form. It's, when you're using, say, a 3, 5, 10-pound dumbbell and you're using it wrong consistently, that creates repetitive strain. That creates injury. So as opposed to, if you've got, I don't know, let's say 300-400 pounds on a barbell doing a squat or a deadlift, you know that weight's there, you're going to be a little bit more focused, right? So because you're more focused, your form tends to stay on track and you don't get injured.
So I'm guessing the Homer Simpson, where basically you use a twisting, jerking motion and take your knees completely out of the equation.
I guess I don't know.
Lift
What
only with your back in a twisting, jerking motion.
Yes, that's not a good idea. Right. And it's funny that you went there because that's a great illustration of what I'm talking about as far as translating workouts from doing the workout to day-to-day life, right? You talk about bending down and picking something up off the floor, whatever
Whereas
it
in the
might be.
gym, you got the belt on and the shoes, and you do it all proper, and then you're trying to pick up the dog from the kennel, and next thing you know, you're waiting for the ambulance laying on your back, unable to control your own bowels.
Yep. That's a good way to put it. I remember blowing my back out, God, probably 20-ish years ago, 15, 20 years ago, picking up a pencil.
From the floor.
From the floor. So
Yeah, you didn't need that pencil, Dan.
Nope.
I'm going to tell you right now, you did not need that pencil. You could have just
I
walked the hell on by it.
I was sitting in my chair in my office. The pencil rolled off my desk. I bent down to pick it up, not thinking, and twisted my back. I was out for 4 to 6 weeks, probably 6. I look back on that, and earlier that day, I had been lifting hundreds of pounds, and it just shows it's one little mental lapse at any point can create an injury. And that's where, as we get older, we really need to start paying attention to things like that, because like you said, you drop a pen, or, you're picking up a laundry basket, getting out of the car, all that stuff is day-to-day life. And it gets harder as you get older, right? I'm sure you're feeling some aches and pains here and there that nag at you. And that's what people are trying to avoid as they get older. So they want to work out. But the other mistake they make is they're not sure how to do it, or more commonly, they overdo it. They get motivated. They walk into a gym. They have no plan. Well, here, let me go do this because I see, six-pack Sam standing over there ripping out his weights. And so, if this works for him, it'll work for me. And they, next thing you know, they're, like you said, laying on the floor, their bowels emptied. They're calling the ambulance and the EMTs. When in reality, if they had started slower, smaller, and built up, they could have gotten where, six-pack Sam was.
Not knowing that six-pack Sam was a fat slob a year ago.
Exactly. Anything is possible. I always tell people, because the other thing we'll hear often from people is, I'm too old, I'm too out of shape, I'm too, fill in your excuse.
You're right.
And yet, I show them some of our other clients and say, they were you, like you said, a year ago, 6 months ago, 18 months ago, whatever it might be. And what I think is interesting about what we do is that our other members will tell them, yeah, I was you. It sounds better coming from them than it does from me, right?
Right.
And that's where having that camaraderie really pays off, because, we don't have, at least in our studio, any six-pack Sams. We have a few keg Kens, but no six-pack. Hey, you like that one, right?
Yeah. Takes me back to the bowling alley.
Yeah, but it really does come down to your mindset and understanding that as you get older, you need to make adjustments, but that doesn't mean you can use it as an excuse to do nothing.
Yeah, walking, as we discovered last week, was just plenty to definitely get started, to move the body. And in the case, and I think this has been interesting, like certainly in my school, this was, back in the 70s and 80s, there was what's the word, stigma of the small weights, the little handbells, the little dumbbells, right? The little guys. That nobody ever wanted to touch them. Those are for the girls, or those are for the, the kids or the special eds or whatever.
Yeah.
But it turns out that those are really good at keeping, like for me, my wrists. My wrists are very delicate from playing, but I still need to use them to lift heavy stuff. So
Right.
keeping those little 5-pound weights around and just doing the little twisty bit, right, while watching TV is enough to keep my wrist from being a problem down the hopefully as I get older. I don't want to get older, but those calendar days are just going by anyway.
Mother Nature, Father Time, whatever phrase you want to use, is undefeated. It's it is the reality. You talk about playing. I've played guitar since I was 8 years old. And I'm noticing in my case, with my left hand, my fret hand, I cannot do a lot of things anymore because of arthritis. So I have arthritis in my wrist. So I'm feeling that. And it was funny. I was in a band with a guy. He was a phenomenal guitarist. I didn't have a fraction of his ability. And, we started playing. He was in his late 50s. By the time he got to 63, 64, the arthritis had kicked in so bad that you would never have known he had the talent he did. He just couldn't, move fast enough, so to speak.
Yep.
And it kind of does relate. There's another day-to-day instance where you've got to be realistic about it and do what you can. Like you said, the exercises to keep the tendons stretched.
And they're not even hard. It's just a little bit more than, what you do in your daily life of picking up a cup of coffee.
Well, you're using your example. That's a beautiful example. So I would say to someone, if you're sitting in an office job or like we are sitting here chatting, have a light dumbbell. I could be sitting here just curling my wrist, holding a dumbbell or can of food for that matter.
Yep.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
A can of food weighs about a pound. You just sit and do that and rotate, between over and upper. It will help with your flexibility and strength. Is it as effective as heavier weights? Well, yes, it is, but you should be kind of mixing the two because, as you said, you come off of a gig, you've got some serious weight to move usually. Load out and load in are never fun.
That's the only part you're paid for.
Yeah, really. And we aren't good enough to have roadies. But that's a lot of work. So you're going from, you play a gig, you're tired, 4-hour gig, you're pretty exhausted afterward. And then your body's, sometimes it's 2 a.m. more often than not, right?
Yep. Because we don't do matinees.
Yeah. Then you don't think about it. You load your gear into the trunk, you pick the trunk up, and next thing you know, you've blown your back out. And that's, again, it all translates to day-to-day life. That's what's important when it comes to exercise is as you get older, it's not about looking pretty. It's not about the six-pack abs. It's about being able to pick things up. It's about being able to walk for some people, right? The biggest thing I think...
Maintain balance on the stairs.
Yes. The biggest thing I see and think with people as they get older and you start seeing that stereotypical frail look, it's because they don't exercise. They don't work out. The bones will naturally get weaker as you get older. The way to counteract
the term is ossicate.
Yeah, that's one of them.
Yeah, because that's what Biden looks like right now.
Pretty much,
and Pelosi and a number of others that are like, man, y'all should just age the hell out.
Yeah, well, I agree with you there. There should be they talk about term limits. There should be age limits.
That's a Donaldson. Andrew has posited that previously. I think both would be effective.
I agree with you. But looking at Biden, you see him shuffle like that. I see many people shuffling. And there's a case where could it be completely remedied? No. Could it be made better? Yes, it could. And obviously the more he did, if he had, excuse me, in his 50s and 60s, and I don't know whether he did or not, exercise would have helped to mitigate the effects now. It's one of the biggest factors.
I know what would help. He needs to walk Champion. His attack dog. Except he needs to be in front of Champion with a stake on his butt. That would get him moving. I promise he won't be shuffling anymore.
The Secret Service would love that, wouldn't they?
Oh, yeah. It'd be like, well, it'd be entertainment. It'd be like popcorn and coffee for those guys. It'd be like, yeah, we're set for the next hour. We're just going to watch Joe run around being chased by the hounds.
Didn't that dog bite one of the Secret
That's what I'm
Service
saying. That's the
Yeah.
dog to have. It's going to keep him on his toes, for Christ's sake. Don't send that one home.
Imagine being that agent, Mr. President, your dog just bit me.
You going to be all right? I'm
they're not
thinking,
supposed
look,
to say anything.
y'all face terrorists, and y'all are facing, people with in a dog. A dog bit me. That's what's going to. That tells me the
You know how to
Secret
stop a
Service.
dog?
Sorry.
You know how to stop a dog from biting you? If you grab their lower jaw and hold it, they cannot bite you. The trick is you got to get your hand in there to grab the lower jaw.
I just stuck my whole body in there. I was about 8 years old. I went to visit a friend of mine, did not realize that their German Shepherd was a guard dog and had always been friendly. Unfortunately, he was eating. I didn't understand this relationship, and I tried petting him while he was eating.
No.
And I'm a small person at the time wearing a down jacket, and he fit my entire body sideways into his mouth. And he tossed me around like a little doll there for a second until he recognized me, because I think after he tore my jacket, he smelled who I was and stopped his aggression, went back to eating as if nothing had happened.
He let you know, though, who his boss, didn't he?
Hey, don't come near my food.
Never mess with them when they're eating. Even, like our dogs, we have two of them. When they're eating, we leave them alone. That's their time. They want to enjoy their meal just like we do, right?
Now, do you ever let them chase you around the house, around the yard?
Let them. They do it automatically.
That's
it's
why
funny,
you guys
they'll-
don't shuffle.
Yeah, they come to the studio with us a lot, and before people get there, they go. We call it tear-assing through the studio, full speed. The two of them playing. They'll chase me. They'll chase my wife. That's like their workout, And then what's really hilarious is they get all tired out, and then when people come in to work out, they go sit near them and stare at them. We both know Bill. Bill likes to bring them treats, so Bill's their best friend. But
they still sit there and park and go, "Wow, watch these humans." It's almost like a movie to them.
They do. But there's another instance, just kind of real quick side note. If you have a dog, take the dog for a walk. You both benefit, right? There's exercise. See, I got a million of them.
Oh, but that's the pet. Most of us don't even acknowledge the pet. We just stuff it with wire and clay and make it look like a stripper pole. Oh wait, that was a mouse.
Beat me to it. I was ready to leave for that. You stole my thunder.
You saw the pictures. Did you see the Christmas ornament with the blinky lights on it?
I didn't get to that one. I was looking at some of the stuff.
Oh, that is just like the fact that people spend money on and she says it in the article that people will spend money on bad taxidermy. So why not? I'm thinking, she chose the dining room table as her operating theater, and I'm thinking I would rather eat my dinner in the toilet
anywhere else
than there. Yeah.
Well, think about this. People spent how much money on pet rocks back in the 70s? We're old enough to remember that.
I have to admit I was lucky. I was young enough at the time to watch like the Pet Rock, the Chia Pet.
Pets.
There was a number of the Mood Ring. The Mood Ring was one of them. I thought that was awesome. Right?
Yeah, I had one of those. Yep.
And
I never had a pet rock.
Well, I have to admit I've never had any of these personally until much later. Like in a thrift store, there's a Mood Ring that if you buy this packet of crap, you get a free Mood Ring. I was like, what? You can't give these things away now. Or Beanie Babies.
Beanie Baby. Fidget spinners were the big one, 3-4 years ago?
And
now, like you said, they're
Furbies
giving them away.
Yep. And this is our mentality that I think would benefit from having a little bit more exercise, so that the insanity that was the Beanie Babies and the Pet Rock is just stupid. Now,
Thank you.
When the pool noodle first came out, I thought it was stupid. Boy, was I wrong.
Oh, they're good for a lot.
That's what I'm saying. And it's just as stupid, if you think about it, it's just as stupid of a thought as the Pet Rock.
I probably have 5 or 6 of them at our studio, believe it or not.
Oh, they make the best bumpers?
They do. They're great bumpers. They're great
handles.
Yes, good for handles. I mean, it's not just for floating in the ocean.
That's right. But, so this guy, and it's kind of like, if you're going to invent something stupid, make it useful.
Practical.
Practical in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we use them all the time. We get them at the dollar store, or, well, it's $1.25 store now. Yeah, they need to change their signs. They're not dollar stores anymore. It shouldn't be Dollar General anymore. It should be $1.25 General.
Dollar Plus.
Dollar Plus. Ooh, there's a. You know what? You better trademark that one, because I have a feeling that's going to be a store, and you'll see 50 of them in Wilmington before much longer.
I need a different color scheme. The yellow and black's getting aged out.
Red and yellow is a popular one.
Yeah, it's starting to look like a hamburger chain.
Yeah, and kind of, doesn't it? Isn't
But
it
the
funny
food
how,
is
like,
the same. I mean, it's all polyplasterine.
pretty much, yeah. But you think about little inventions like that, and those people are millionaires and billionaires.
And there's some of those probably in the weightlifting and fitness, because again, you're not necessarily running full circle fitness as a Mr. Universe champion bakery, if you will. You guys are just trying to help people not break their hip, not fall down.
Perfectly put. We're not your beach at the puke gym. We're not the six-pack ab style. That there's plenty of other places for that. If anybody wants to know of some, have them reach out to me. I'll be happy to give them some guidance on it. We're about functional fitness is what we call it. Being able to get through day-to-day life, not fall. If you do fall, not have to worry about breaking your hip. One of our clients recently fell when she was on vacation and did not break her hip. And that was a big win for her. So that's where our focus is helping people, less aches and pains, less joint pain day to day, being able to, go for a walk on the beach, or, go on vacation and hike the mountains, as some have done. That's what it's about for us. We don't scream. We don't yell. We do have fun. Oh, we have a lot of fun. And more often than not, some of it's a little, let's go with risque. They like to have those conversations. They have no boundaries with me, the ladies. I just sit there and close my eyes and shake my head sometimes. So we have a lot of laughs, a lot of fun. And that's really, if it's fun, it's not exercise, right? It's a social gathering where we're moving together.
Because it should be as much fun because the walking on the beach is just as fitness function as lifting a dumbbell.
Say that 3 times fast. And yes, it is.
No, I'm still on my first cup of MacGyvered coffee, which is not holding up so well.
Well, I'll hold my beautiful cup of coffee up on the camera. I'll just real quick there, just to show you.
Yeah, I'm headed straight to the store to replace my French press. That was a very depressing morning.
You got to have a backup. Always have a backup in the house.
Well, I did, but the backup is apparently not of the same caliber. And that's what happened. I had my backup, and my backup was not really up to the task. So I'm going to the store later today.
Coffee's a priority. You always got to have. You can't have cheap coffee, and you can't have cheap equipment to make it.
But again, it does follow in the now the words escape me. But last week we were talking about having a sense of balance or moderation. That I'm not drinking coffee 24 hours a day. It's my one shot in the morning to sort of help jumpstart the whole thing. But again, with weightlifting, you're not weightlifting all day long. You're not fitness all day long. And I think what you just mentioned, the functional fitness, is probably a newish term.
It is, and some people in the fitness industry don't like it because the way the terminology and way they define it. My definition of it is doing exercises or workouts that translate to day-to-day life, right? A squat is picking something up off the floor, so is a deadlift. An overhead press is getting something out of your cabinet. Stuff like, when you think about it in that terms, it kind of takes the negativity that you have towards working out. Because who wants to work out? I don't even want to work out half the time, right? But when I sit there and go, well, yeah, I'm 58 now. When I'm 78, I want to be able to get that can of food out of the cabinet. All right, I'll go do some presses, that helps. And Coffee does too, just to bring that side note. I drink about 2 pots a day. So as I told my doctor, because she yelled at me for drinking the amount of coffee I do, I said, Doc, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I eat pretty good about 90% of the time. I exercise regularly. You got to give me something. You can't take my coffee away. And she got quite the laugh out of that. And she said, fine. Kind of how she said it was fine, which, as we both know, when a woman says fine, it's never
not.
fun.
No.
But, you know, in the scheme of life, as I look at it, look, if I'm going to have a vice, drinking a couple pots of coffee a day, there's far worse things. And the reality is my health's pretty good, so it's not affecting it. Doesn't mean it can't down.
I was roasted by a family member once upon a time because they always saw me with a Mountain Dew in my hand, not realizing that I may nurse the same soda for 2-3 hours, thinking that I'm just downing it every time they see me, that I'm just, slugging it down my gullet, and I'm not. But even if I was, Mom, I'm drinking 4 Mountain Dews a day, my 1 cup of coffee, and that's pretty much my entire daily intake.
Wow, you need to get some water, dude.
I have plenty of water. I use water in my coffee, and I use filtered water in my Mountain Dew. Thank you very much. And the retort was, how about if I drank as much beer as my stepbrothers, who go through at least a 12-pack of beer a day, but you're not going to say anything to them, but you're going to roast me for my 4 sodas a day. And I think I can count every drink I had last year on one hand.
I can too. It's funny you say that.
Because I remember having a beer at one gig, and I remember tasting some whiskey at a dinner party, and that's about it for the entire 2021. And I'm not saying people shouldn't drink or don't drink. Drink all you want. I don't care. That's your thing, not mine.
Everybody's responsible for their own actions. And I have the same view as you. I don't drink. I was not an alcoholic, but I was when I was younger. You talk about a 6-pack of beer every day. I was a case of beer every day back from about 13 to 23. And then I cold turkeyed it. And like you, I think last year I probably had 4, maybe 5 drinks, and I didn't finish most of them.
Right.
Beer to me now is disgusting. I don't like it.
I'd rather eat bread.
Much better. Absolutely. You gotta pick the battles, right? Bread and coffee. There you go. You could live on that.
And you can put peanut butter on the bread. There's
peanut butter is a healthy fat. See, I can give you all these positives.
Well, how about rice cakes with peanut butter and a glass of milk? That was one of my favorite snacks when I was in high school working out.
Well, those boxes that Amazon uses? That's what rice cakes taste like.
Well, that's true. That's why you put peanut butter on them.
Peanut butter, jelly. There's not enough.
Because it is like eating styrene. Those little packing chips. It's dry. I don't know how it became so famous and so popular if it's your only food throughout all of the, Oriental area, then I get it. You're going to do everything to that food to make it interesting that you possibly can. Like the Russians did with potatoes, but they stopped with vodka, which I guess is all they really needed.
That's their whole hydration is vodka.
So, yeah, I think we're in a new era here over here.
Too funny.
So with that in mind, we're going to keep our balance, yeah?
Yeah.
All right. And I'm going to let you go. And we had a great time last night, by the way. That's one thing I did want to... we had Dan on the grilling side. Got to grill Bill. And I think the part I don't think Bill realized is that to keep you and Mary out of trouble, you kept putting all those fun questions for Bill over on the young Republican kid. Poor guy did not realize he was being... Well,
it's funny because Isaac's a great kid. He's really smart too. And before, how it is before a show, you kind of talk about, hey, what are we going to do? And he had his questions, and I said, dude, those are great because I'm the one that's going to roast them. You get the nice, fun questions, and he did a fantastic job. I was really proud of him being able to do that because it's not easy, as you know, hosting a show. And we had a lot of fun with it. It was all, we challenged him a little bit, but it was all meant well. And actually, just so I've gotten really good feedback on it. So people should watch or listen to that podcast What do you call it? Podcast, streaming cast? What is the technical term we're calling it?
I'm having such a hard time with the vocabulary of the 21st century. I'm
don't know what to
afraid
call
of.
this.
I'm using myself the New England Dictionary of the English language that's been in publication for several hundred years, and podcast is not in there.
No, it's not.
So technically, we are an internet radio station. The concept of a podcast is for those who don't have access to some sort of radio format. So they record it and then they put it out there and they hope people listen. We have gone one step further in the craziness and have decided to just go straight to broadcast. There's no prep for this. I don't. When I wake up at 7, or well, when I go on the air at 8, I'm usually up by 5:30 to make this happen. My brain is completely blank. And then I start looking for the news stories, like the guy who sold his testicle for a new car. You know,
as I said last week, that was a ballsy move.
Yeah, that's and the insurance. Wow, it's great you can pay for the car. I discovered this when I was younger. Yes, I can afford the car, but you know the gas, the maintenance, the tires. The tires on that car were $250 a pop. And every time that I decided to do a really cool, like, hey, I can make my car sing a note, and yeah, that was $500. So yeah, I like my little car where I can replace all 4 tires for $200.
I remember the days where you could do 4 tires for about $60. They were 15 a piece. That's how, you know, I'm sure you do too.
Oh, I used to be one of the guys in the little suit that came out to check your oil pressure or your tire pressure and your oil level.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was my gig for a while. It's a full-service gas station attendant at one of the last standing full-service Shell station with the little hat. Oh, yeah, it was.
And it wasn't in Jersey?
It was in Louisville, Kentucky, actually, and I'm really glad we didn't have cell phone camera things at the time. Because that was a very unflattering outfit, I will say.
That would be some nice pictures to put up on social media for you.
I would never run. My shot at Congress would be eliminated faster than Matty Cawthorn.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm not running for anything, because there's stuff in my past if those pictures ever got out.
Well, now your wife is listening to the show and she's digging through the closet right now looking for them.
No, I bet you she is.
Oh, she's the one who took the pictures. Okay, I'm with you. She's just...
my first wife did. Pictures of me like wearing a dress at a function. Yeah, there's stuff like that out there.
Have you ever seen Rocky Horror Picture Show?
About I don't know.
Okay,
200
so
times.
that says it all right there, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Every Friday night we used to. It was the theater we went to. It alternated. One Friday night was Rocky Horror, and the other was The Song Remains the Same. The Zeppelin.
Oh wow!
So they used to alternate every Friday at midnight, which one they would run, and we went pretty much every Friday.
Just to get out of the house.
Just you know.
And then we went to International House of Pancakes afterwards, just to cause problems.
Yeah, we had Denny's. So, but yeah, we used to bring the toast and throw it at the screen and all that stuff.
Great Scott.
Yeah, and then when the Zeppelin was on, we were screaming whatever song was going. The whole theater would be yelling it out. It was great fun. I miss those days.
Yep, and we can't do them now. It's just a little crazier. And what's funny is when kids are walking around with like a Led Zeppelin shirt, it's like, name a song. Go ahead. Name a song that's not Stairway to Heaven. Name one.
Yeah, or A Whole Lot of Love, right? Or Cashmere. Other than that, they don't know anything. Although my kids, man, they're into Zeppelin, so I raised them well.
Right. I mean, you had to educate them, but yeah, the ones that show up anyway in the public school system, it's like, yeah, obviously the education system is not working. That's why we even have to have history of rock and roll as a college course that you actually get historical credit for.
I think there was something like that at my college back in the day, but it was like music theory. I never took it, but it was like music theory for rock or
now that one would have been a little bit more legit. This one was like, Eric Clapton went from the Cream and started what band?
Wow, you stumped me. Hold on, give me a second. Not traffic.
One hit song out of the whole thing that lasts like 9 minutes. The last 6 is a piano solo.
You're talking about Derek and the Dominoes, but he had one in between.
Well, that's the one I was referring to.
The one with Steve Winwood. What was that one?
Not Faces.
No, well, we're both blanking, so I don't feel so bad now. You know what I mean? Can't find my way back home. That's the one song I could never master on guitar to this day. But anyway, now I'm going to think about that all day long. I'm going to call you up later when I figure out what it was.
Okay. The number's right there on the screen. You can't miss it. So, with that in mind, I'm going to go. We've blown right over the hour, and I have a special guest that's coming in who's calling in actually from a committee.
Blind Faith.
Blind Faith. Thank you.
Got it. All right. Anyway, sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt.
He's at a conference right now. The Cape Fear River's behavior using the long-term data sets that they have so far as part of the Lower Cape Fear River program run by Dr. Mike Malin. I'm going to ruin that. And this is data going back to 1995, so we have, 17 years, with various special topic efforts, some of which, as he's a limnologist and a zoologist, his interest is in the survivability of things like the striped bass population, which are indicators.
You know what? I'm going to listen to that because that would fascinate me.
So apparently they've been brainstorming, some of the other ways that they can use these data sets to start determining or working on solutions through chemwars, for example, and some of the other particulates. I don't know if you've seen. Did I mention Lake Mead?
Yeah, you talked to me about it last night.
It's like 10 stories lower than it used to be. Like 100 feet lower. They're finding dead bodies from the mob. I think they should rename it Lake Mob, Lake Mafia, right? Wow. So people have been drinking dead body water for a while. And then nurdles, that's the other one that got my attention. If you're familiar with anything like the plastic spoon you get at Taco Bell or at the picnic, those are made from little tiny plastic beads that weigh more, they are larger than they weigh. So they're almost airborne. They're very, very small, like, a millimeter to 2 millimeters, and they weigh like 1/100th of a gram.
Yep.
They are now on every waterway on the planet.
And they're in our bodies too.
They are now.
They are starting to see that we're ingesting ultimately that stuff. And we're just at the infancy of the effects of that. Plastic's been around, 50, 60 years, probably. The real data will come in over the next 50. And I think it's going to shock people because they're finding it in every species on the planet.
But that doesn't shock them, right? They cut open a bloated shark, and the shark is dying, not because, it's a juvenile and it's unhealthy. It's, like damage, like maybe got hit by a boat and can't eat anymore. No, the shark itself is physically fine. It's just ingested so many animals that have plastic in them that they're unable to digest it, and it gets wrapped up in their intestines, etc. Because, believe it or not, most animals on the planet have very similar digestive systems to our own, and not good. Then mercury, so it's been an interesting conversation that I didn't realize how dynamic the environment of the Cape Fear River is. So
I'm definitely going to listen in on this because I'm fascinated by that stuff, and I wouldn't call myself super green, but it's on my radar a lot, and I do what I can. So I think that'll be a fascinating conversation.
Hey, if you're not throwing your face mask on the ground when you leave the grocery store, you are miles ahead of most of the people that I've encountered in this area.
I never wore one. I always picked my groceries up and had them do the shopping for me. So I didn't have to use a mask.
Oh, okay. Well, I used one because it makes me prettier. And then, of course, once I say hi, smile at them, it's all over from there. It just goes to hell in a handbasket. All right, so I'm sorry I got to cut you short to make room for these spots. Stay tuned, I promise. I'm not sure how long this meeting is running, but he has promised to ring my phone when he gets there. So here in a moment, we're going to be back with some more of the Asylum-ready news, Asylum-worthy news. Has absolutely nothing with what's going on in the rest of the planet because, well, it's not that we don't care. It's just not as much fun. I mean, I'm sorry, talking about a war or talking about a guy who sold his testicle for a car. I'm going for the testicle car every time. Every time.
Or the mouse.
Or the dead mouse.
Or the dead mouse.
The dead mouse stripper is amazing. All right. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to hit... well, look, I almost made that mistake because this sounds amazing when it hits. It almost sounds like real music. It's amazing. Anyway, we'll be right back at the Asylum, your refuge in a world gone mad, right here on the Big Talker Network. Please don't go nowhere. We will be right back.
Keeping Whiteville informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
Teachers and parents, the North Carolina Symphony is here to support you as you carry on the education of your children and students. Take your kids on a free virtual field trip to the Symphony with a virtual education concert and companion student book. Go on a virtual journey to learn what makes music music with music by William Grant Still, Beethoven, Brahms, and more. Access the free video and student book with password 1932 at ncsymphony.org/virtual.
The way I describe it for people is my dad shot himself and the bullet hit everyone in his life. It was a week before my 30th birthday, and I had this impulse to call him, but I didn't because I thought I could call him later that week.
63 Americans a day die by gun suicide. With safe gun storage, we can give our loved ones a second chance at life. Learn more at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by Brady and the Ad Council.
Hello, I'm Matt Bennett with WWAY News. Wilmington police have arrested a suspect in a fatal hit-and-run Monday night on Shipyard Boulevard. The driver, 31-year-old Rakeem McMillan, is charged with felony hit-and-run resulting in death and driving without a license. He is being held on a $20,000 bond. Police say the crime happened in the 1600 block of Shipyard Boulevard around 10:30 Monday night. Officers say McMillan hit 40-year-old Tiffany Forsyth. She was taken to the hospital where she later died. Some Brunswick County drivers may be detoured today due to a brush fire that has forced officials to shut down a portion of NC 211. The Driving Creek fire is in the Green Swamp Preserve and is only about 20% contained. Highway 211 is closed from the Highway 214 intersection in Bolton to the Highway 17 intersection in Supply. At this time, the North Carolina Forest Service says the fire hasn't threatened any homes, but people living nearby should expect lots of smoke. The fire started Sunday and was caused by a lightning strike. A nationwide shortage of baby formula means bare shelves in stores and problems for parents of newborns. Supply issues, coupled with a voluntary recall of 3 popular brands of formula manufactured by Abbott, have only made things worse. The Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, or WIC, which helps provide formula to low-income mothers, receives much of its formula from Abbott. Ann Wren with New Hanover County Health and Human Services says a shortage like this leaves parents with few options. The Pender County Board of Education is recognizing some remarkable teachers from across the district. The intervention team at Topsail High School is made up of teachers who have volunteered their time to mentor at-risk kids based on their academics. Students who are identified as at-risk are offered the mentoring program, and they can decline it, but many have taken advantage of it. Topsail High School principal Dr. Larry Obita says each teacher has about 5 to 6 students that they meet with as much as twice a week. For more on these stories, you can head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Matt Bennett. Have a great day.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with the Storm Track 3 forecast. It's going to be another comfortable day ahead of us as our temperatures climb into the low 70s, the middle 70s away from the coast, but we are going to see our fair share of clouds, especially as we get going into the afternoon and evening hours. And we do have a small chance for a few isolated showers late tonight under mostly cloudy skies as our temperatures fall down into the upper 50s with north winds holding steady at about 10 to 20 miles per hour. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by 2 Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to 2menandatruck.com. 2menandatruck.com.
My name is Brian Wilson. I'm running for District Court Judge. During my lifetime, I've gone from protecting your God-given and constitutional freedoms as a combat vet of the U.S. military to working locally as a carpenter building homes while I worked my way through college. For the past 17 years, I've been protecting and defending your constitutional rights in the courtroom. I'm currently protecting our rights of our most vulnerable, our children, as the guardian ad litem attorney advocate for the children of Brunswick, Columbus, and Bladen County. I've spent my career serving our country, our state, and our communities, so I ask that you continue your confidence by voting for me, Brian Wilson, in the primary elections on May 17th. Thank you.
Folks, the sad truth of it is most of what we're seeing in the news cycle is just noise, and it's recycled noise at that. Nothing informative, nothing that actually helps us discern the times that we live in. That's why we started doing Heard Tell. Every morning right here on Big Talker Network, 7 a.m. with a replay at 3 p.m., we talk and discuss the issues of the day, culture and politics with knowledgeable guests, no yelling, no caterwauling, just grown folk talk about the issues that matter. Join me, Andrew Donaldson, every weekday morning for Heard Tell.
Listen to Tom Goolsby on The Chad Adams Show.
People with common sense know that the entire theory of socialism is one big lie.
The Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Oh yeah, we are back. Here at the Asylum on your refuge in a world gone mad. Right here on the Big Talker Network. Very much looking forward to hear from our friend Larry Cahoon. I mean, he's going to be feeling even super smarter because he's hanging out with smart people, brainstorming ideas on how we can make our Cape Fear watershed a little less toxic. Right? Anyway, until then, we're just going to hammer away at some of the other fun news until he gets here. I hope, and if he does run late and misses us, I am not going to be upset because it's such important smart people work. Right? And sometimes it's just as simple as throwing the mask into the trash as opposed to the ground. Right? Things we learned as 5-year-olds and somehow have forgotten sometime in our quest to become cool machismos. Right? There does seem to be a correlation, at least in my observations, of the types of jackholes that would throw their crap on the ground and the type of ridiculous machinery they would drive. Basically a leaf blower, 3 different colored fenders, right? Some duct tape holding the front bumper on because the bumper has been, the whole car has been dropped to within half an inch of the ground, and every speed bump and rock and gas station you try to go to has just cracked it, bashed it, and or the guys with the big trucks with the super wheels and the 5,000 candlewatt lights, and they throw all their trash in the back of the truck thinking it's just going to stay there and empty itself. Oh look, by magic, my truck bed is empty. Not that you were doing 70 miles an hour on the freeway and everything in the bed of your truck went airborne and is now scattered all over the side of the road. Good job. This is who we have become. This is who we are. Welcome. Now, I guess it's not necessarily a uniquely... Oh, here it is. That's the call I was waiting on, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, sir. Uh-oh, I used the wrong... Good morning, sir. There we are.
Yeah, this is Larry Cahoon. Okay, yeah. I don't know if you have caller ID.
I do, and I'm looking forward to hearing about the brainstorming.
Yeah, good. We can talk about that.
Yeah, what happened? You had some smart people, Dr., and I'm not going to pronounce this correct, Malin?
Well, he wasn't able to attend, but his name came up a lot, so, yeah.
Okay.
Matter of fact, we decided that since he missed the meeting, we'd make him the one in charge.
Oh, so the absentee driving.
Business.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. You didn't make the meeting, so we elected you chair.
The best form of volunteerism. I love it.
Voluntold, we call it.
Oh. So for 17 years, if I understand a bit of this, y'all have been collecting data on the water quality.
Oh, more than that. Since 1995.
That's
27 years.
27 years. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's why I need a calculator.
Yeah.
Or I need to go to the math department at UNCW and learn something. But anyway.
That won't happen.
So for
won't
nearly
learn anything from those guys.
That's why they keep coming to you. Yeah, we need a philosopher on board. So in 27 years, that's pretty much half my lifetime.
Yeah.
The water quality of the Cape Fear River has just been crystal, bottle ready the whole time.
Well, as we now know, no, you don't want to drink that, not without treatment.
And that's not even, like, before we even get into the data set, is there really, okay, so Lake Mead has dropped by, 100 feet or so. It's ridiculous. So much that Lake Mob or Lake Mafia has been, uncovering all these dead bodies that, I'm guessing it's their, what's the word? Adipocere. We've been enjoying their adipocere flavored water.
God, I hope they treat that water before anybody drinks it.
Oh, they're using it for electricity. Nobody's drinking it. Nobody's swimming in it. But I'm guessing adipocere would be far more organic and easily identifiable and removed and treated in water than, say, nurdles or PFAS or.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So they're probably okay. Of course, in Las Vegas, who drinks water anyway, right?
It ruins the whiskey.
Right. Yeah. Why would you put 2-day-old ice into 14-year-old bourbon?
So I'm sorry, I'm just distracted. The brainstorming for 27. Well, the brainstorming session this morning was focused on the data set from the past 27 years.
Right. And all the other information that we have, And we know a lot about the river. It's a matter of synthesizing it,
Okay, so you're synthesizing it into a plan or into a lawsuit or?
No, it's a research project. The synthesis is the research.
Okay.
Okay. One of the things that happens in science is that we have so much data, and that's well and fine, but somebody's got to put it all together to figure out what it tells us. And when you have a long-term data set like the ones we have, quite often, it's a forest for the trees problem.
Oh.
We're looking at the trees. We collect the data in a monitoring program, and the big picture sometimes isn't clear until you actually analyze that data and then pull in other data sets to figure out why you see what you see.
So it becomes as clear as the Cape Fear River.
Well, right now it's not that clear.
Oh,
but
why we
talked about ideas for possible drivers, things that make things happen in the river. River flow is a big one. Right now it's not flowing much because we've had drought. But when we get big rains from hurricanes or El Niños, you get a lot more flow, and that shifts all the properties of the river. And you get effects on the coastal ocean as well. So there's a lot. It's a very dynamic system. And there's a lot of useful information lurking in all of that data about fisheries, about how we manage resources and that sort of thing. So there's a lot we think we can learn from doing the synthesis of all of this information.
Does the data set sort of lend itself in any direction that would, I don't know if I'm wording this right, but as we become aware of things, are some of the other components adding or modifying our understanding?
Yeah, that's right. When you look at the large-scale spatial patterns, obviously the estuary is a very dynamic place. It's a nursery zone for a lot of fisheries species. And one of the things that we think is happening is that depending on the amount of river discharge, the specific distributions of different recruits moves up and down in the estuary depending on how much flow you have. So with a big discharge event, you're going to push a lot of those things seaward. And when the river is dry, some of those things, or drier, the salinity, heads farther upstream. It gets saltier farther upstream, and that'll shift the distributions as well. So, with things like blue crabs and many of the other fishery species, we think there are effects that we can pull out from our data sets. And then we can look at how the river affects the coastal ocean, the water offshore, because that's where it goes. It carries all this stuff out there. And what does that stuff do? That's nutrients, potentially pollutants of various kinds. And so there may be a whole set of effects in the coastal ocean that result from changes in how the river is pushing stuff out. And that's about discharge, and that's about rainfall. So, and then the estuary itself, of course, has been dredged over the years. The old project depth, I think, was 36 feet. In 2000 or so, it went to 42 feet. They're now talking about dredging the river down to 48 feet for bigger ships. And so that makes a big change in how the estuary functions. You're going to get more seawater in there on average. On top of that, we've had a sea level rise of 8 inches on average at Wilmington over the last 12 years. And so, there's a lot more seawater coming up than there used to be.
Which adds to storm surge because you've already covered that much more of the ground level.
Yeah, exactly. So the flooding problem that we see, the parking lot for the battleship, for instance, tends to flood at high tides, and we're having some high ones right now.
Oh, but that's not a problem. They now have a shuttle service of John boats that can get you to the front door of the battleship.
Well, that or, you can borrow a pair of waders. Pretty soon it'll be scuba gear, Yeah.
Well, it's a good thing the boat has been fixed and can now float on the water. So as the water level
at least
goes
the battleship floats. Yeah, that's right. We don't have to worry about that.
We're going to have to use like the Sunset Cruise boat on the Wilmington side to get you there. But we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out, yeah.
I do enjoy looking across from downtown, and you see the battleship in all its magnificent glory, and then you see this little marina, this little wooden pier thing next to it, and it's like, how are you going to get into the... Okay. Spider-Man is challenged.
Right. Yeah.
But in a couple of years, they can just build the marina right off the gun deck.
True. They just have to build a whole lot of floating stuff. Floating museum, floating docks, floating parking lots, and stuff like that.
Carnival cruises.
Well, the Army builds pontoon bridges, right?
Yeah.
You just build a bunch of those, and you might have to have a weight distribution check before you proceed onto the pontoon parking deck. That might be a lot cheaper than trying to elevate the parking. Not really.
Well,
you got to think outside the box here because, the ocean is stubborn. It's relentless. You can't beat it. I was just looking at pictures of couple more houses that fell in up on Rodanthe, and it's, we're not on the air, are we?
Yeah, we are.
Oh,
okay, we are live.
Oh, we're live. Okay, I was. Yeah. Okay, I'll keep it clean then. Yeah.
I did not know that the house had dissolved into the earth.
No, there were a couple of them that fell in yesterday. Up off Ocean Drive in Rodanthe, and they had been in peril, but this big northeast wind event we've been having here, that's much more of a northeast storm that they're having up there. And northeasters typically actually raise sea level. I won't go into the physics of that, but sea level comes up from a northeast wind. And then you get big wave action on top of that, and that's when you lose houses on the beach. And that's when you lose beach, too. I mean, the erosion gets worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the house is, like, gone.
Gone. Busted up, yeah. And, you know, of course, now they're trying to clean it up. And I gather from the article I read this morning that the owners were told back when, you know, your house is going to fall in, you got to move it. And apparently they didn't do that. I don't know all the rules and all the ins and outs of that, but there's some amount of liability involved there and some amount of insurance and whatnot. But what you have is busted up pieces of house washing up and down the beach. So, you know, the beach is closed for obvious reasons. You know, you'll be hitting the head with a 2x4 or worse. Yeah. You know, appliances,
or
doors,
plate,
windows,
right? Gets
chunks of roof.
forked.
Yeah. Right. And of course, these houses are built on big pilings. So if you only get hit by a 2x4, you're lucky because you could be hit by a 6x6. And that'll ruin your whole day. So on top of that, NC-12, the Outer Banks Highway, is closed between Rodanthe and Oregon Inlet because it's underwater.
So this wasn't very well thought out.
Well, back when they originally built all this, it seemed like a good idea.
When the ocean was 8 inches lower in the northeast.
Yeah, it was a lot lower and so on. I rode up that way last year, and there's a stretch of NC-12 where you got big sand piles, not dunes, piles, where it's been bulldozed on either side of the road, and it's kind of like driving through a canyon of sand.
Like they dug out in Colorado and New Mexico when I was a kid. They would just pile it up on the side of the road, and it was almost like sheer walls.
Right, exactly.
Wow.
And same thing on parts of Ocracoke where the wind was just blowing the sand onto the road, and they were bulldozing it back off, and the beach is right there on the other side of those piles. So, you know, it's only a matter of time and a little bit more sea level rise or, you know, bad storms or whatever. And those roads are gone. You know, they're closed, they're broken up, and that sort of thing. So, you know, the Outer Banks in particular, especially that chunk between Oregon Inlet and Rodanthe, that area is in real trouble. It's going to take an enormous amount of effort and money to keep using that area. So,
and I guess as a tourist trade-off, there's going to be some sort of meeting of the minds.
Well, think
how much
about
do they charge
this.
for parking there?
They
charge your whole car. They just take the whole car.
Good luck if you can park. Think about running a business up there, and the road that brings your customers down to see you is closed.
And not everybody's got a John boat.
That's not a great business model. Yeah. So time to think about ferry boats or some other means of getting there. And bear in mind, on a day like yesterday, when it was blowing probably 50 up there, 50 knots that is, being out on the water in a boat is not a great idea either.
I mean, I was pretty mad that it was knotting up my hair, like unloading the gear from my car to do the show yesterday afternoon. And anytime I stepped into the open atmosphere, it just twirled my hair like a madman. But I was never really expecting someone to lose a house.
Yeah. There's a big difference between, you know, messing up your hair and your house falling in. Yeah, big difference. And being isolated. You know, the folks who live south of Rodanthe right now are literally on an island, much smaller than it was a week ago. Because they've been cut off. They can't use the highway. There's no other way off the island except by the ferries. And you got to go down to Hatteras to catch a ferry. So this is a harbinger of what's coming.
I got it. We need to distribute floaties to everybody. Right, the little armband you blow up, you put them on a 3-year-old, and it keeps them from drowning.
Right.
Perfect.
Well, here's the downside to that. So
more plastic in the ocean.
About, I was less worried about that than floating away.
Yeah, there isn't really a lot of directional control with those.
Yeah, if you've ever been, in a situation where you're floating away from shore and can't get back, that's pretty scary.
It is.
Yeah.
Whether you're 4 or 40.
Yeah, I remember one dive trip I did off of Cape Cod, and the tide was running strong, and we had tied up our Zodiac boat to the dive float, and I went over the side in my gear and managed to lose hold of the tow rope that I was supposed to grab onto. I was holding a bunch of gear in one hand and just missed the tow rope, and zip, I was gone. Oh. And I've got full scuba gear on, so I'm not going to die. But I was
at
a good quarter mile away before they came to get me.
Oh,
and
wow.
Fortunately, yeah. I was floating quite nicely. I had a buoyancy compensator, and I had, a whistle and all the safety gear. I wasn't worried about that. And I was hanging on to my equipment, the stuff I had in my hand. I wasn't going to let that go, because that was one-of-a-kind stuff. And if I'd lost it, trip was over. Mission was gone. And they finally came to get me.
I would hope.
But
they came to get the gear. You were just still attached to it.
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah, I handed them the gear first. Make sure that was safe. Wasn't going to lose that stuff. But, yeah, it's a little spooky floating around in the ocean. We were out of sight of land, and I was just bobbing along, in the current. I wasn't
waiting
really
for a pelican
too
to land on you.
Or a great white to come along.
Yeah,
I don't worry too much about sharks because I taste bad, I think. I hope.
You're not as good as a taco.
That's right. Yeah, I probably looked a bit like a seal, but I taste a lot worse than a seal, I hope.
You taste like neoprene.
Yeah, it's the first bite that you got to get past. That's the problem.
They told me that about Brussels sprouts, but it never got better.
Yeah. Well, the Brussels sprout didn't recover either, I'm sure. So yeah. So more houses have washed in, and in truth, the northeast storms like the one they're having actually do more damage to the Outer Banks collectively than the hurricanes do. They may or may not get hit by a hurricane in a given year, and hurricanes are obviously stronger storms, but the northeasters are much more frequent, and because they raise sea level by as much as a couple feet, you get sustained erosion and sustained loss and damage as a consequence. So, if folks drive up the Outer Banks, what you're going to see, whether weather's good, weather's bad, doesn't matter. You're going to see bulldozers on the road. They may be really busy, and they may be just kind of waiting there to see what happens next. But to keep NC-12 open, they've got to bulldoze sand off of it all the time. So.
And that whole area is under a coastal flooding warning right now that expires tomorrow.
Yeah, they're still getting some wind. So are we.
But I'm not seeing any rain event nearby.
No.
Northeasters are typically a rainstorm event, aren't they?
Yeah, and we didn't get it. We're on the backside, and it seems like every rain event that was possible here somehow has missed us. Last week there were tornadoes.
Yeah.
Over the weekend, Friday, northeast of us, but we didn't get any rain out of that. And the weather weenies, sorry, weather guys, but you're weenies, because you keep being wrong about this. They keep promising us a chance of rain, and you know, as if we might get some, and then they keep being wrong. It's not their fault that it doesn't rain, but they keep getting our hopes up, you know. So should I water my plants today? No, it's supposed to rain tomorrow.
Right. Or get yourself up in a plane and start seeding these clouds so we can have rain.
Be careful what you wish for.
I remember my stepdad telling me about that.
Cloud seeding is sort of, kind of, maybe not going to work.
After several $1 million in the 60s, I think that was the consensus then.
Right. I think they decided that that was a bad idea. They were using silver iodide crystals. And, you know, in order for it to rain, there are certain physical principles. The water vapor content of the atmosphere has to be high enough to be close to the point at which it will precipitate out, that is, convert back to actual liquid water.
And condense onto
and that's
a
a function
surface.
of temperature.
Yep.
Right? So if it's, you know, too warm or not humid enough, it ain't going to rain. I don't care what kind
You're
of
just
cloud
going to
cover
throw a
you've
lot
got.
of silver on the ground.
Yeah, and silver's actually a toxicant. So, I mean, it's not real dangerous to people. Don't throw out your jewelry, but it's not a good idea to spread that all over, and it's not cheap either. I mean, what's the price of silver these days?
Yep. And that
So
was
I'm not a
in
big
the
fan of cloud seeding.
Well, we could just use Morton's salt. That was another in the comedy realm of things. That was another one of the suggestions. But before I get too far out, the research on your meeting this morning was centering on the behavior of the river.
Yes. Yeah, there are things that affect the river. I mean, you know, we take it for granted that, you know, the river's always flowing out and so forth, blah, blah, blah. In fact, you know, unless you've experienced some of these things, obviously the hurricanes that come through have a big effect. You know, you get a lot of rainfall and so on, and the river rises, and you have all this brown water pushing out into the ocean. But we have other effects as well. I've mentioned the sea level rise effect, which, again, you know, you don't see from day to day. But El Nino, which people have now heard of quite a lot, we used to think that it was an event that occurred in the eastern Pacific, and we now know that it's a global phenomenon. It's primarily driven in the Pacific Ocean, but during El Nino events, when the ocean is abnormally warm on the east side of the Pacific, it pushes more moisture up our way, and the southeastern United States gets a lot more rain in the wintertime. I mentioned to the group I was meeting with earlier, the highest monthly discharge of water out of the Cape Fear River up until Florence occurred in January of 1998. And that was El Nino rains. We didn't get one massive rain event. We got a long series of 4- and 6-inch rains, which are pretty impressive, you know, collectively. But we had a hell of a lot of rain during that portion of the year. It's wintertime, December through February, roughly. In 2015, 2016, that winter, we had big El Nino rains. And again, the river was full of fresh water. Matter of fact, one of the bizarre things that happened was that a lot of these ghost trees that we see along Martin Luther King Parkway and that, you know, along Smith Creek, some of them leafed out again because the river was now fresh again. Those cypress trees are intolerant of salt, okay? If you freshen up the water and the groundwater that they're sitting in, some of them are still alive, and they'll leaf out again as if they're, you know, fully functional, regular trees. And then when the flushing stops, when the salt water comes back, they drop their leaves and look like they're dead. Now, some of them are truly dead. They can only remain dormant for so long. But that El Nino event highlighted that these trees are pretty resilient to occasional exposure to salt water. The problem now is that with higher tides and what's coming in terms of dredging, those dormant trees are probably going to die. And so we'll see more ghost trees. What's coming in terms of dredging is that the Port of Wilmington would like to dredge the river channel essentially from the mouth of the river and actually out into the ocean a bit, all the way up to the port, down to 48 feet. The current project depth is 42. That may not sound like a lot, but they also have to widen the channel, because when you deepen it, you can't make the sides steeper, because the
slope will fill itself in.
Yeah, it'll fill itself in. That's right. You've got to have a certain slope around the sides so that it doesn't just fill up the main part of the channel again. And again, I'll skip the technical stuff, but when they deepen the channel for bigger ships, they're going to have to widen the deepest part anyway, because the bigger ships are wider and deeper. So they're really going to have to dredge out a tremendous amount of material from the river itself.
Right. It's not like cutting out a 6-foot post hole.
Right.
This
right.
is like a few miles long.
Right. Yeah. It's not using a ditch witch, right, where you dig a long, narrow trench. Right. It's not like that.
And then you have to put that crap somewhere.
Yeah.
Are they going to use that for the foundation of Battleship Point?
They do need some fill. A lot of it. They're going to put a lot of that up on Eagles Island. The problem is that I understand that Eagles Island, where they put dredge material, is close to capacity. They may not have enough volume left there.
Okay, so when you said that, my mind instantly went to those genius guys over in, I think it's Dubai, that have been building islands off the coast.
Right.
So theirs are like every time they throw mud on there, right? They dredge up the ocean, they throw it on top, and then the island they built sinks.
Well, bear in mind they are filthy rich, and from the standpoint of engineering, if it's possible, somebody rich enough will do it. You know, if you have enough money, you can build almost anything. I mean, we could build a colony on the moon. I say we. I won't be playing a role in that. But if you had enough money, I'm channeling Elon Musk here.
Yeah, sir.
If you had enough money, you could build a colony on the moon, right?
Yeah, sir.
It's just a matter of how much it's going to cost. The question of whether that's a viable strategy for anyone else is the important one. Why would you do that? Because I can. Well, I can't, so I'm not going to do it. Dubai's filthy rich. They can afford to build islands. When you start dredging millions of cubic yards of dirt and muck and stuff out of the river, you're looking at billions of dollars of expense. And who pays for that?
Well, that would be my tax.
Yeah, that's part of your tax
bill. I bear that
bill.
entire burden myself.
Yeah, there you go. Right.
But how are you saying it's running out of space?
Well, they've done maintenance dredging in the river. Bear in mind, sediment comes down the river from upstream, and they have to keep the channel dredged just to maintain it. And so that material is being piled up on Eagles Island, south of the causeway. If you, it's hard to see because it's opposite the state park, but it's actually a very high set of dikes enclosing an area where they dump dredge spoil or dredged material. We're not supposed to say spoil.
Doesn't sound as
spoil
nice.
sounds bad.
Yeah.
Dredged material is the preferred term.
Even though it is spoiled.
Yeah, you can't use it for much because it's loaded with nasties and whatnot. A lot of it's just muck. I mean, you can't build anything on it. It's not sand. It's real gushy stuff, and it has to dewater and dry out over time, and et cetera, and et cetera. So they've got a little problem, or well, I say a little problem. I'm being facetious. That doesn't translate well. But they have a big problem with dredged material. If you're going to dig that kind of a channel in the river, that's an inordinately large amount of material that's got to come out and go somewhere. And a lot of it is not suitable for beach nourishment or anything like that. Some of it might be. But we don't like nasty stuff put on our beaches now, do we?
No, we like it
wants...
golden, clear, clean, bleached.
Yeah, we like regular sand. We all know what regular sand is, beach sand. A while back they made a mistake up at Topsail, and they put rocks on the beach. And, obviously their quality control left something to be desired.
Yeah,
but
you can't
they
walk on
had to go
rocks.
back in and remove all the rocks. I'm serious. And that was a real pain, very expensive and time-consuming. And, they had simply made a mistake in terms of where they were sucking up material to put on the beach. And, again, the quality control failed. They should have noticed, boss, there's a lot of rocks coming out of the pipe here. And apparently no one noticed until it was way late in the game. So that kind of mistake is something we don't ever want to see repeated. Imagine that they put the wrong stuff on one of the real popular beaches here. The hue and cry would go to Raleigh and Washington.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful about that.
Now, for fun, I'm bringing up the map that I have from Google Earth onto the screen, and I'm looking at Eagle Island, and it looks like there's two weird colored areas and then a bunch of brown stuff. Do they have to put it in a particular place, or?
Yeah, they're on the south part of the island. There should be an extensive diked area.
Yeah, I think that's what this is.
Yeah, and
it looks like
they
it's
pump
been
all that
striated.
stuff up there. Yeah, and they're getting to capacity. I mean, you can't pile that stuff up indefinitely. You make a giant hill. The elevation there is pretty high already. And, again, it's not cheap to move dirt around. If you're going to pile up that stuff, it's a bulldozer load at a time. And it gets real expensive when you start talking about millions of cubic yards. That's a lot of money spent just moving dirt.
And now we got to find a new place to put it, which means we're going to have to take it further away from where we're dredging it.
Or something, yeah. I don't know what Plan B is. I haven't heard any thoughts on that.
You're giving them a lot of credit. What do you mean, Plan B? What do you mean, plan?
You have a point. Yeah.
Sorry, I just...
Yeah, I don't know what they're thinking. Let's put it that way. I can't tell you what they are thinking in terms of an alternative. We'll leave it at that. My personal opinion of some of these ideas is different matter. I just want to stick with what I know for a fact.
Why would we do that?
I can't assume what others might know or not know or be willing to say out loud. There are other issues with dredging the river. One of those is that when you deepen the channel, of course, you allow seawater to flush farther upstream. You'll get more seawater. If you increase the volume of the estuary by digging a deeper channel. And if you assume that river flow over the years is more or less an average, which it is, I mean, you haven't changed the river discharge, you know, the amount of fresh water flowing in by deepening the estuary. The difference will be made up with salt water, so we're going to get saltier water in the estuary overall. And that will tend to push up farther and saltier than it's been in the past, and that's what we've already seen. I remember, I have to say this story. I remember that when they were planning the 2000, you know, approximately about the year 2000, they deepened the river. They had a study done looking at whether or not the river would become saltier. And I remember being asked about that by a reporter, and I said, well, of course, it's simple logic, as I just explained. You dig the channel deeper, you increase the volume of the estuary, and if you don't increase the volume of fresh water coming in, then the extra volume will be made up with salt water, you know, on average. Sure, you get rain events and dry events and so on, but if you put more salt water into the estuary, it will be saltier. And in the article that resulted, they also had quotes from the Corps of Engineers folks who said, we had the Division of Water Resources, that's a state agency, run a model, and they predicted that the river would become fresher. And I thought, well, that's a bunch of BS. And sure enough, after the fact, we found out, well, the river became saltier, you know. Am I a genius, or am I just a reasonably logical person? So this model was, you know, bogus, to put it bluntly.
Well, I'm thinking a limnologist would have better knowledge of this than an MBA.
Well, the Division of Water Resources ran a hydrology model, they claimed. Well, of course, they were told what the answer had to be.
Oh, so
okay.
they fed that in and worked backwards.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
And they crafted a model that would give them the answer they wanted. And the reason for that is not hard to figure out. So here's the reasoning. If the environmental impact statement were to say, you're going to make the estuary saltier, you're going to convert freshwater high-value wetlands into lower-value saltwater wetlands, that is a negative impact and a negative cost. Okay? And that goes into the cost-benefit analysis that has to be done to justify a project. When you look at the acreage of high-value freshwater wetlands that were actually converted into lower-value saltwater wetlands, you realize that the cost-benefit calculations were all wrong. And the amount of money that would have had to be spent on what they call mitigation, that is, compensating for the harm you've done, would have been phenomenal. So it was really an economic issue that drove this BS about making the river fresher by dredging it out. And I don't mind putting that out in public. If the Corps of Engineers wants to argue with me about it, they're welcome to do that, because the data show that I was right. So imagine that.
Yeah, the smart guy. Actually, you know, that's why he's here.
You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out some pretty simple principles. Again, you increase the volume in the estuary, and where does the extra water come from? Well, it comes from the ocean, because the estuary is at sea level.
Imagine that. I don't know.
Yeah, imagine that.
And water never seeks its own level. Now, I do have a question about density in saltwater and freshwater. Saltwater is denser, yes, and will sink compared to freshwater.
Correct.
So we could actually have a different flow compared to, you know, the depending on the layer. Since it's a heavier, denser material, it won't flow at the same rate.
Right. Under certain circumstances, you can separate the layers. And when I look at salinity data in the estuary, you can see some of that, what we call stratification.
Yeah, okay.
But bear in mind, the river has a lot of flow in it. The tidal currents in the river, if you've ever spent any time on the water, the tidal currents are very strong, and they will mix that water column pretty well.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah, the velocities are sufficient to do that.
Because I was just imagining it like the salt water at the bottom is sort of creeping along in a nefarious, malicious march inland, whereas the river water on top is sort of like sliding by on the top and bringing
bear
some
in
of
mind, the river channel, the estuary, the project depth is 42 feet, right? So that's the deepest part of the river. The length of the channel is 24 miles, roughly. So put that in common units. I can't do math live on the air, but 24 miles times 5,280 feet per mile, and you get some humongous number of feet that the river is long, and only 42 feet deep at the most. So the opportunity to mix that water and homogenize the salt water and the fresh water is tremendous.
Wow.
Yeah, you're going to do that, okay? And then throw in some wave action from wind and even boats, and you've got a pretty well-mixed estuary. It's fresher up at the top, and it's saltier down below, and that makes sense. You've got a steady input of fresh water at the head of the estuary, and that that distribution of salinity will change depending on river discharge, and of course the tidal cycle, storms, things like that. So it's quite variable. But bottom line is that's a well-mixed estuary.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I thought the density was going to have something more to do with it, and it turns out I'm the one who's dense.
Well, no, it's you weren't trained as an oceanographer
or a hydrologist, but the curiosity is there, so that the awareness of some of the larger bodies of water. I believe there's an ocean under the ocean. It's like a lake under
water
the
in
ocean.
The sediments,
that has a denser quality to it, so it actually is below the ocean. It's really weird. It's one of those David Attenborough things.
Okay.
Yeah, that's me though.
Ah, okay.
I mean, that's my curiosity taking me down the rabbit hole in a direction I had nothing about, but it diverts, or I should say, it takes away from where we are at the Cape Fear River area, which is why we have the Cape Fear Riverwatch, CapeFearRiverwatch.org,
right.
which Dr. Cahoon is thankfully a smart representative. Because your knowledge, I think the part that got me the most was the cross-disciplinary studies of limnology, oceanography, and biology. That the three of those together would certainly yield an understanding that most people here should be in awe of. And I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, it's fun. It's challenging.
Well, the stuff you get to do for that job is fun. I don't know if the job is fun, but certainly diving off of the coast of everywhere.
Some parts of the job are fun,
right? But cutting open a dead fish to find plastic inside is probably not so much fun.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, that's it's. I mean, there are people who really enjoy cutting open fish to see what they've been eating. I can't say that it's fun or pleasant to find that they're full of plastic. No, that would not be cool. That's kind of sad. And dealing with some of my colleagues deal with washed up dead mammals and other creatures, sea turtles, big fishes, and whatnot that get killed by humans one way or the other, and that's it's disturbing. We hate to see that.
Well, so far I'm glad to hear you don't have any friends working at Lake Mafia.
No.
Because to be on that sheriff's department right now would be a pretty disgusting gig.
I would guess, yeah. It's not really that surprising knowing the history of things out there, and it sounds like the Goodfellas brought some of their habits from New Jersey and New York out to Las Vegas when they migrated out there.
So if you're missing a loved one from 50 years ago,
yeah,
that would be a good place to check. The missing persons log is outdated, but Lake Mead is giving up her secrets.
Yeah.
Man. All right. Well, sir, thank you so much for your time. It's now like 20 after, and I'm sure the next author is looking at me like, dude, am I even going to do a show? So I will take that hit because it's always fascinating, and certainly while you are in the middle of developing research to work with the data that we have currently that has shown outrageous changes in the last, 20 years more so than the last 100 combined.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's sort of becoming important. It's starting to matter because it doesn't matter. It's not important until it matters. And now that it's starting to matter, it's becoming important.
And everyone needs to remember, this is our river. We own it. You don't want to see your property trashed, do you? That river belongs to the people. And
now, with some of the houses and some of the yards I've seen around the area, we're fighting two battles.
Well, that's always true, I think. But we collectively can assert our rights and say, that's our river. Please don't trash it. And there are folks we can talk to about that.
And get involved with the Cape Fear Riverwatch.org.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
You can add your voice to the voice of smart people like Dr. Cahoon and everybody at the Cape Fear Riverwatch that has successfully pulled a number of legal maneuvers to get things done. And the one that I would like to see happen now is a revisiting of the grand jury, which failed to yield a indictment a few years ago. Maybe we try it again.
Yeah. I wish I knew what went on there.
Yep. We're going to have to do something about that. But I thank you again so much for your time. Because, again, out of one meeting and right on the air, I really appreciate that. That's huge.
Sure enough. No problem.
And with that in mind, if I don't see you before next week, we will have you back. And there it is.
Yep.
And with that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, I have to end this day as wonderful as it is. And we will join the Asylum in the morning. And right now, I'm going to jump right into my friend's show, Consumer Choice Radio. That's it. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Matt Bennett with WWAY News. Wilmington police have arrested a suspect in a fatal hit and run Monday night on Shipyard Boulevard. The driver, 31-year-old Rakeem McMillan, is charged with felony hit and run resulting in death and driving without a license. He is being held on a $20,000 bond. Police say the crime happened in the 1600 block of Shipyard Boulevard around 10:30 Monday night. Officers say McMillan hit 40-year-old Tiffany Forsyth. She was taken to the hospital where she later died. Some Brunswick County drivers may be detoured today due to a brush fire that has forced officials to shut down a portion of NC 211. The Driving Creek fire is in the Green Swamp Preserve and is only about 20% contained. Highway 211 is closed from the Highway 214 intersection in Bolton to the Highway 17 intersection in Supply. At this time, the North Carolina Forest Service says the fire hasn't threatened any homes, but people living nearby should expect lots of smoke. The fire started Sunday and was caused by a lightning strike. A nationwide shortage of baby formula means bare shelves in stores and problems for parents of newborns. Supply issues, coupled with a voluntary recall of 3 popular brands of formula manufactured by Abbott, have only made things worse. The Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, or WIC, which helps provide formula to low-income mothers, receives much of its formula from Abbott. Ann Wren with New Hanover County Health and Human Services says a shortage like this leaves parents with few options. The Pender County Board of Education is recognizing some remarkable teachers from across the district. The intervention team at Topsail High School is made up of teachers who have volunteered their time to mentor at-risk kids based on their academics. Students who are